Hi, this is Daniel Jedediah Cook, and I wanted to share something with you guys that Yahweh showed me on Sunday that really has affected me strongly since Sunday. And it was a new revelation about the Living Letter Ayin. On Sunday, it began when I began to see a spiraling that was going on in my spirit man. And I began to think about infinity, and not only the fact of what infinity is, but also the perspective of infinity. And what really kind of got me was that I began to realize that the way that I normally saw infinity was from the place of myself being an endpoint in infinity. And I began to realize that was kind of a misnomer, or a kind of an oxymoron, because in the place of infinity, there is no endpoints ever. It goes on and on and on. And although I may be one dot in the middle of that, in that line of infinity, it still didn't make sense because my mind had told me that I was an endpoint in that infinity. And so I began to think about it, and Yahweh began to reveal to me about the infinity that is within, the infinity that's inside of me, the infinity that is a part of the inside of who I am, that I am an infinite place, infinitely small or infinitely large. I'm an infinite place inside of me. And I began to think about this because I began to realize that just as the universe is out there with all the galaxies and the stars and everything that's in there, I began to correlate that with my body. And I began to realize that my cells are really nothing more than galaxies inside of my body. And these galaxies have a central location. They have an electromagnetic force. Science has proven this. They have electromagnetic force. They've got the ability to move, to be able to respirate. You know, a lot of people don't realize is that there's actually two types of respiration that go on in the body. The external respiration, with taking a breath in and out, but then there's an internal respiration that happens at the cellular level, where the cells begin to breathe in the oxygen and breathe out the carbon dioxide, where when we externally exhale is then blown off. So you see, there's actually two layers there. And I was only looking at it from one perspective, and that being the outward perspective. When I began to realize that this was an inward thing that Yahweh was showing me, he brought me to the place of Ayin. And I began to look at Ayin a little bit closer. And of course, I'm not showing Ayin here on this video right now, but I'm going to kind of explain a little bit of the way that the letter itself looks, because there was a great revelation in the way that the letter looked to me. But I noticed that it was a nun. And based on the font that you're looking at, you could see that a nun looks similar to like this. It's a flat line with a top and a foundation. All right. And but now with Ayin, that nun is kind of opened back a little bit. And right out of this place, right about here, there is a swirling vav that comes up out of the center, or out of the if you will, the belly of the nun, that completes the letter itself. Now, some of you may know, some of you may not know, but there was a living letter that actually has been hidden away. During the time of Hezekiah's reign, the letter Ga was actually mixed with Ayin. And that representation of that spiraling part there that was coming out of the belly of the nun is the representation of that living letter Ga. Now, Ga is really important because, you know, if you look at it and try to discover something by going to Google, you may find something a little bit different from what I'm about ready to tell you. But remember that Yahweh always has hidden secrets. It is the glory of God to conceal a matter, and the glory of kings to search it out. And so one of the things that according to Google and Webster's and so on, or not necessarily Webster's, but you know what I'm saying, Google and other places that you find out, you discover that Ga means twisted or wicked, as in a twisting of the rope or something like that. But we have to remember that the twisting that is seen in this place of the rope and so on isn't the only kind of spiraling or twisting that is going on. Because one of the other ways that you can see God is as the place of creation, in the place of the spiraling of creation. The fact that everything is formed from, if you will, this electromagnetic force that spirals in and of itself. It's called it's mathematical term that's called torus, Torus. And so you can check that out, and you kind of get a picture of what I'm talking about when I talk about the torus here, and how the spinning of that torus actually is the representation of the God. And when I began to realize the connection of that, Yahweh spoke something very specific to me, and He said that the Ayin is a revelation of the universe, of the infinite universe within. And I began to think about that. You know, my pastor, Apostle Aaron Smith, has talked about for many, many years how that it seems like that even religion has been in cycles, where there's been a consistent cycle that's gone over and over and over again. But I realized, because of doing a little bit of study about the universe and the way that it reacts, is that really the circular time of the sun and the moon that we see day in and day out isn't as circular as we always thought it was, but it's actually a spiraling, because the earth, the sun, the moon, and the stars that are surrounding us are all moving in a direction out from the center of the Big Bang when it occurred. And so, that being the case, then even with what we see as a circular motion is really a spiral, because as the sun moves, it spirals as it goes along. So even time itself is never the same, and that goes on until infinity. The word over and over again says the world without end. I know we've had some differences of opinion there, and there's some things that I don't want to get into right now in the eschatological perspective of this. But the truth is that this moves on into the place of infinity. But I began to realize that there was a place of the same thing inside of me. If you will, let's go to the infinite small. The exterior of the universe may be the infinitely large, but inside of me is the infinitely small. And I began to think about it, because I began to realize, in this place of realizing who I really am in Him, I began to realize that every cell, at the center of every cell, if you will, at the singularity of every cell, there is a throne of Almighty Yahweh. And Yahweh sits on that throne of my cell. And each cell is then ruled and reigned and spoken over and just being, because I am one in Him and He is one in me. The fact that every cell now has no choice but to do exactly as it was meant to do. Now, bear in mind, I do have a responsibility in this, because Yahweh also says to me that I need to be careful of my own words, because our agreement, out of the mouth of two or more witnesses, every word is established. I am one witness, and Yahweh Himself is another witness. Yeshua Himself said this: I am a witness with my Father. And because He showed us that path, then I am a witness with the Father with my own words and the words that I speak. And so I began to realize, now I've dealt with some physical issues and still dealing with a few physical issues. However, I'm beginning to see a new perspective of who and what I really am in Him. And the fact that this infinite universe within me is in that place of extolling and praising Almighty Yahweh for who He is in me and who I am in Him. And the fact that he's beginning to realize that I'm beginning to realize, that I'm beginning to realize who I really am in Him. And it's changing absolutely everything. And as I walk out day by day, this healing that has already begun, I can go on to some depth and explain to you some things that have already been done, that Yahweh has already begun to heal, because I honored a word that He spoke to me about one particular place in my life that I needed to gain some control over. And in that word, He has shown me step by step by step the infinite universe within, and the place of who I am in Him, and the depths of who He is and who I am in him, who he is in me and who I am in him. So let's all stand together in the realization of this, that we are far more than we realize we really are. We are far more, far greater than we ever realized we are. That Yahweh has made us to be in his own likeness and his own image. If you can go there, we are him in the earth. We are a facet of him in this earth. I've given this story before, and in the Living Letter Mentor Series classes, I mentioned this in the beginning. I talk about how if you could picture Yahweh as a diamond, and this diamond has the ability to not only reflect and refract light, because as light comes in to the diamond itself, it is able to refract and open up and then be able to see all of the different colors within the rainbow because of the prism effect of the diamond itself. But the diamond of Yahweh has an extra special part of it because the very light of Almighty Yahweh is also born in the very center of that diamond. And as he began to show me this perspective, I realized that each one of us are a facet on the diamond of who Yahweh is. So we each have our own specific perspective. We each have a very unique and individual perspective that really only we can see, because that's exactly the place that Yahweh had placed us to be. And the most awesome part about this is not only the light within, but the light that's coming into not within the diamond and outside of the diamond. Once it hits just one of those facets, it hits other facets at the same time. And the brilliance that we see when we look into a diamond is how the light not only reflects from the inside, but from the outside of that diamond, and then bounces off of the different facets. Remember, each one of us are one of those facets. And that's when we look down at the diamond and see the brilliance of the beauty of a diamond. And in seeing that we are a part of that, and we are a facet in this diamond of who Yahweh is, then we are a part of the beauty of who he is in the earth. And we are truly one in him. And if you will, we are him in this earth. Thank you so much, Yeshua, for what you did on the cross to bring about this place of connection. The fact that you loved the Father so much that you were willing to listen and obey his word even unto your death. And Father, Yahweh, thank you so much that you loved us so much that you gave us your son to die on the cross for us, to be able to move through to this place of standing and being who we are meant to be. Yeshua paved the way. He paved the path for us to be able to see who we really are in him. Thank you guys very much. And I hope that this begins to establish the fullness of Yahweh in each and every one of us. Y'all have a great afternoon.